හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Tuesday, the 16th of January 2024. Energy reforms. President Ranil Wickremesinghe outlines the reforms and future growth prospects in Sri Lanka's energy sector whilst on official tour in Switzerland.
Growth is expected driven by export of goods, services and investments including FDI.
Unhealthy talks. Health trade unions discussion with the acting finance minister fails. Health strike to continue until 8 a.m. tomorrow. Sri Lankan politics. UNP calls on all parties to unite to elect Ranil Wickremesinghe as the president. SJB says that the president and government are incapable of winning the elections, while the National People's Power expresses their confidence in claiming victory at the elections.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a warm welcome to today's edition of AdaDerana's English News First at 9. This is Jonathan Benedict with your daily roundup of news. Let's start with the top stories for today. President Ranil Wickremesinghe stressed that the present time is an opportune moment for investing in Sri Lanka's renewable energy sector, expressing confidence in its potential to yield substantial benefits for both stakeholders and consumers in the coming decades. Addressing the Green Technology Forum convened yesterday in Switzerland, the president further underscored the idea that investors venturing into this sector can anticipate a comprehensive and unwavering policy framework in the realm of renewable energy.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe made these remarks during his address at the Green Technology Forum convened yesterday in Davos in Switzerland. The event was coordinated by the Swiss Asian Chamber of Commerce. Speaking on the theme of paving the way to an energy-secure Sri Lanka, President Ranil Wickremesinghe highlighted the substantial potential of Sri Lanka's renewable energy sector. He further outlined the government's initiative over the past 2 years to establish an investment-friendly environment in the renewable energy sector.
There is an urgent need for acceleration of global action towards climate change mitigation. There have been multiple global forums which have resulted in numerous commitments towards this end. However, actions have fallen drastically short of commitment. The fallout of this failure in global leadership is borne largely by developing nations of the global south. It is very evident that there is a disproportionate impact of the adverse outcomes of climate change on developing countries. This brings to light the issue of climate justice and the need for a stronger contribution from the advanced economies towards adaptation and mitigation efforts in the global south. Sri Lanka will forge ahead with its efforts towards climate mitigation. In addition to internal reforms, we are also putting in place the framework to attract green finance. Sri Lanka has developed the roadmap for sustainable finance, green finance taxonomy, and the SDG investment and the green bond framework that is currently under formulation. Government is in the final stage of implementing the unbundling of the Ceylon electricity board. The unbundling process will open up opportunities for private participation in distribution as well. A major Indian player has commenced to implement a 350 megawatt wind power plant that is expected to be commissioned in 2025. The same player is considering further $750 million investment in wind power. The potential for wind power has been estimated so far at about 40 gigawatts. The potential for solar energy is at about 200 gigawatts without rooftop solar, which will increase. This is far in excess of Sri Lanka's need. So we are now looking at the possibility of producing green hydrogen and green ammonia in Sri Lanka.
Meanwhile, addressing the business roundtable organized by BOI Sri Lanka and the Swiss Asian Chamber of Commerce yesterday during his official tour to Switzerland to attend the 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, President Ranil Wickremesinghe highlighted significant strides in Sri Lanka's economic recovery and outlined future growth prospects.
The IMF approved Sri Lanka's first program review in December 2023, and this paves the way for the economy to shift from stabilization to recovery and growth from 2024. Growth is expected driven by export of goods, services and investments including FDI. Government is developing access to market for businesses established in Sri Lanka by expanding the network of trade agreements. The government will also welcome private investments into infrastructure development in the form of public-private partnerships with a PPP law to provide legislative and procedural clarity in the final stages of draft. There are also opportunities for investments in the divestment of state-owned enterprise. This provides investors access to a mature business in critical sectors such as telecommunications, financial services, transportation services, energy among others. A SOE restructuring law is also in the final stages of draft. Sri Lanka is in advanced stage of drafting a new investment law which is expected to provide even more liberal market access in key. We will also be converting the Port City Commission into a Colombo Financial Zone Commission which will also handle the offshore economy. Finally, we are also bringing in a National Productivity Commission to ensure the competitiveness of Sri Lanka's economy. So this is the first stage of reforms that we are bringing, and this we hope to complete by end of this year.
Carrying on from that story, as we just saw, President Ranil Wickremesinghe, during his official tour to Switzerland to attend the 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, met the former Vice President of the United States, Albert Arnold Gore. He is also the chair and co-founder of Generation Investment Management and Climate Reality, a non-profit organization involved in the education and advocacy of climate change. President's Senior Advisor for Climate Change, Ruwan Wijewardena, and the Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations in Geneva, Himali Arunatilaka, also participated in the meeting. President Wickremesinghe, during his visit to the World Economic Forum, also met the chairman of Menzies Aviation, Hassan El Houri, yesterday. The meeting also saw the participation of the National Security Advisor and Chief of Presidential Staff, Sagala Ratnayaka.
Hello, Howard. Nice to meet you again, long after about.
Moving on to news in Sri Lanka, following unsuccessful talks with Acting Minister of Finance, Shehan Semasinga, over the non-eligibility of the DAT allowance to segments of health professionals, the 24-hour token strike launched by the health sector trade unions this morning is expected to continue until 8 a.m. tomorrow. The strike, which commenced at 6:30 a.m. by members affiliated to 72 trade unions of the health sector, severely affected operations of hospitals in both Colombo and other districts. Consequently, Tri-Forces personnel were deployed to support hospital operations upon a request made by the Ministry of Health. Employees affiliated to the health sector trade unions, excluding doctors, launched a 24-hour token strike today, demanding that the government provide a sum equivalent to the recently increased allowance of disturbance, availability and transport for doctors, which amounts to 35,000 rupees. According to the Health Service Trade Union Alliance, around 100,000 employees of the Supplementary Health Service, including laboratory technicians, radiologists, physical and occupational therapists belonging to 72 health sector trade unions, joined the strike, which commenced at 6:30 a.m. today. Other than the Supplementary Health Service employees, the strike was also supported by interim medical service providers, including the public health inspectors, family health services, ophthalmic technicians and electronography technicians. As a result of this action, daily operations in hospitals in Colombo was severely hampered. Apart from Colombo, the situation was the same at hospitals in other districts of the island. Taking the situation into account, Tri-Forces personnel were deployed to support hospital operations upon a request made by the Ministry of Health. However, there were health sector employees who did provide services at certain hospitals, including the children's hospitals, the cancer hospitals, the maternity hospitals, the kidney hospitals, and the National Institute of Mental Health on a voluntary basis. Meanwhile, during lunch hour, health sector employees of the Apeksha Cancer Hospital in Maharagama staged a protest.
දැන් බලන්න බෙහෙත් බාල කරලා ලෙඩ්ඩු මැරුණා. මේ කිමුල් කඳුළු හෙලපු වෘත්තීය සමිතිය අද මොකද කරන්නේ? වැඩ වාජනය කරලා ඒත් ලෙඩ්ඩු මරනවා.
අර හදිස්සියේ නිින්දෙන් හැරලා කරන වෘත්තීය සටහන අර අවසානයේ සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ මේ රටේ සමස්ත වෘත්තීය සමිති ව්‍යාපාරයටම හානියක්.
The striking trade unionists met with Minister of Health Dr. Ramesh Patirana and Health Secretary Dr. Palitha Mahipala. Meanwhile, at 3:30 p.m., the striking trade unionists held a meeting with Acting Minister of Finance Shehan Semasenga.
මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරයා විදියට ජනාධිපතිවරයා රටේ නැති නිසා ස්ථිර අදහසක් දෙන්න බෑ කියන එක තමයි ඔවුන් කිව්වේ. නමුත් අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරපු යෝජනාව සලකලා බලලා ජනාධිපතිවරයා ආව ගමන් සාකච්ඡාවක් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා සහ උත්තරයක් දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා කියලා තමයි ඔවුන් කිව්වේ. සාකච්ඡාව අසාර්ථකයි. ඉතින් මේ තීරණත් එක්ක අපි හෙට උදෑසන 8ට වර්ජන ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය අවසන් කරනවා. නමුත් අපි වෘත්තීය සමිති 72ටම කැඳවලා තියෙනවා මහා සභාවකට. අපි ඒකෙදි ඉදිරි වෘත්තීය සමිති ක්‍රියාමාර්ග සැලසුම් කරනවා.
Now moving into the world of Sri Lankan politics, senior leader of the United National Party, Akila Viraj Karyavasam, called on all political parties to unite in re-electing Ranil Wickremesinghe as the president of Sri Lanka at the presidential election this year. He made these comments while addressing a district rally of the party as the run-up to the presidential election begins. UNP's General Secretary Palitha Ranga Bandara says that the international community is willing to cooperate with President Ranil Wickremesinghe because of the faith they have in his proven intellectual capacity.
The Ratnapura district rally of the United National Party aiming 2024 presidential election was held yesterday at the auditorium of the Provincial Council of Sabaragamuwa.
හැබැයි කොරන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලා අද වෙනකන් කියා ගන්න බැරුණා කයිය නායක. අංගවලින් ආරාධනා කරනවා. ලෝක සංවිධාන වලින් ආරාධනා කරනවා. අද ලෝක ආහාර සංවිධානයෙන් ආරාධනා කරලා ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. එතුමාට ආරාධනා කරන්නේ මොලයක් තියෙන වැද්දෙකින්ද. අනුකුමාරට ආරාධනා කරන්නේ නැත්නම් මොලයක් නැති කයියක් ගහන මැට්ටෙකින්ද කියන අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් විතරෝනේ. වැද්දන්ට විතරයි ලෝකයේ කැමති. සියලුම පක්ෂ ඔක්කොම එකතු වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඔය සන්දර්ශන දොරම්බල්කාරයන්ගෙන් මේ රට ගොඩ ගන්න බෑ. මේ රට අනාගතයක් ඇති කරන්න බෑ. එහෙනම් අපි ඔක්කොම එකතු වෙලා ඉවර වෙලා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා ජනාධිපතිවරයා කරන සාර දෙන්නවා.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa says that the health sector strikes in the country are due to the weak leadership traits of the president. Addressing an event in the Kalaveva area today, the opposition leader advised that the president should prioritize the health sector issues in the country over the financial increments over his expenditure.
The donation of smart classroom equipment and dictionaries to the Sirimapura Vidyalaya in Kalaweva under the 68th phase of the Sakala program was held today under the patronage of opposition leader Sajid Premadasa.
දැන් බලන්න අද දවස පුරාවටම සෞඛ්‍ය ශාස්ත්‍රයේ වර්ජන ගිලන් වෙච්ච මේ රටේ ප්‍රජාවට අද බෙහෙත් හේත් ගන්න බෑ. සෞඛ්‍ය සමිති ගණනාවක් වර්ජන. ඒ අයගේ ඉල්ලීම් ඉදිරිපත් කරනකොට රජය කියනෝනේ අපිට ආණ්ඩුවට සල්ලි නැහැ කිය. හැබැයි ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ වියදම් වලට පරිපූර්ණ කැස්තමෙන්තුවක් ආයවැයෙන් දුන්නු මුදලට වැඩිය තවත් අමතර ලක්ෂ 2000ක් අනුමත කරගන්න. අපිට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ මේ රටේ රෝහල් පද්ධතියද සෞඛ්‍ය ශාස්ත්‍රයේද ජනාධිපතිවරයා දැනගන්නට ඕන එයාට මදි වෙන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා මේ රටේ රෝගීන්ටත් දෙන ප්‍රතිකාර මදි. මේ රටේ රෝගීන් මරණ මංචකයේ කරා ගෙන යන තීන්දුව මේ රජය ගන්න. ඒ නිසා පැහැදිලිවම අද සෞඛ්‍ය ශාස්ත්‍රයේ අඩපණ වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ රටේ දුර්වල නායකත්වයේ තුල. රටේ නායකයා පිටරට සවාරි ගහනවා. එයාගේ පිටරට සවාරි වලට තව ලක්ෂ 2000ක් ඉල්ලනවා. මේක හරිද? මේක සාධාරණද? බලන්න මේ සෞඛ්‍ය වර්ජන වලින් කවුද විපතටපත් වෙන්නේ? කවුද අපහසුතාවයටපත් වෙන්නේ? මේ රටේ අහිංසක ජනතාව. නිකම් බොරුවට හැමදේම වෘත්තීය සමිති වලට බැනලා කරලා හරියන්නේ නැහැ. ජනාධිපතිවරයා ප්‍රමුඛ රජය දැනගන්නට ඕන. ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ විදේශ ගමන් වලට ප්‍රථමයෙන් රටේ සෞඛ්‍ය ශාස්ත්‍රයට ප්‍රමුඛතාවය ලබා දෙන්න.
Meanwhile, Parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Nalin Bandara, stated that despite the surety, President Ranil Wickremesinghe and the government will realize that they will be unable to claim election victories in the near future. Independent parliamentarian and leader of Pivituru Hela Urumaya, Udayagaman Pilla, also went so far as to make a prediction that the candidate representing the government at the upcoming presidential election will claim the lowest number of votes in the country's election history.
අපි දැක්ක එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයත් දිස්ත්‍රික්කෙන් දිස්ත්‍රික්කය යනවා. ඒ දිස්ත්‍රික්කේ මිනිස්සු ජීවත් වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා නම් හොයලා බලන පාඩක් නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ බලන්නේ ඊළඟ ජනාධිපතිවරණයට භූමියේ මොකද තත්ත්වය කියලා. තව තතියක් දෙකක් ඇද්දි තේරෙනවා මේ ජනාධිපතිවරණ තියා ප්‍රාදේශ සභා මැතිවරණයක්වත් නම් දිනන්න පුළුවන් වාතාවරණයක් ආණ්ඩුවට හෝ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපතිවරයාට හෝ රාජපක්ෂ බලවේග වලට නැහැ කියන කාරණේ.
තමන්ගේ දේශපාලන මතය තමන්ගේ දේශපාලන ක්‍රියාමාර්ගත් එක්ක ජනතාවට සමීප වෙලා ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන කටයුතු කරා නම් හොඳයි. එක එක්කෙනාගේ තියෙන අඩුපාඩු සහ ඒ අයගේ තියෙන වැරදි හොය හොයා ඉන්නේ නැතුව.
ඉතින් ලක්ෂ 3ක් ගත්ත එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයට ලක්ෂ 100ක් ගන්න නම් මේ වෙනකොට රටේ ජනතාව එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂ ආණ්ඩුව ගැන ප්‍රසාදික ඉන්න ඕන. අපිට නම් පේන්නේ මේ රටේ සාතිශය බෞද්ධ ජනතාව මේ ආණ්ඩුවට වෛර කරමින් ඉන්නේ. මම අනාවැකියක් කියන්න. ඊළඟ ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී ආණ්ඩුවේ අපේක්ෂකයන් ලබා ගන්නේ ඉතිහාසයේ අඩුම ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිශතය.
අනිත් දේශපාලන පක්ෂ ඔක්කොම වගේ අඩපණ වෙලා තියෙනවා. කැඩිලා බිඳිලා විසිරලා ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ජාතික ජනබලයේත් එක්ක ජනතාව එකතු වෙනවා. එළමෙන ඕනෑම වර්ගයක මැතිවරණයකින් ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න පුළුවන් කියන සහතිකයක් වෙනකොට අපිට තියෙනවා.
Welcome back. Country representative of the United Nations World Food Programme, Abdul Rahim Siddiqui, revealed that his office in Sri Lanka was able to help approximately 3.4 million Sri Lankans during the crisis-hit period. He made these comments while accepting a donation for Sri Lanka by Russia in Colombo. Meanwhile, Russian ambassador to Sri Lanka, Levan Zagarian, assured that his country will continue to provide humanitarian aid to friendly countries, including Sri Lanka.
Another batch of 130.41 metric tons of sunflower oil was donated to Sri Lanka today by the Russian Federation via the World Food Programme of the United Nations.
The economic crisis and the food security related problem is almost over. We are at the fag end of the crisis. So when the problem started, the economic crisis started in mid-22, we as WFP has started emergency interventions in Sri Lanka. And I'm very pleased to let you know that we have been able to reach almost 3.4 million people.
Despite the problems my country is facing right now, needless to say that the current international situation is a little bit complicated and thousands and thousands sanctions have been imposed against my country. But thanks to the policy of my government and personally President Putin, we managed to overcome many problems. And right now, the Russian Federation has become #1 in Europe in terms of economic development and #5 in the world after China, USA, India and Japan. Thanks to the sanctions, it sounds a little bit fun. Thanks to the sanctions, we managed to boost up our domestic production. We are going ahead. Let me assure you that we will continue our humanitarian aid to all friendly countries, including friendly people of Sri Lanka.
Now for some good news, the prices of 3 types of fertilizers used for the cultivation of tea have been reduced by 2,000 rupees. Accordingly, the price of T750 and T709 and T200 fertilizers have been reduced by 2,000 rupees. According to the Minister of Agriculture and Plantations and Industries, Mahinda Amaravira, directives have been issued to the chairman of the Ceylon Fertilizer Company and the Colombo Commercial Fertilizer Company, Dr. Jagat Pereira, to reduce the prices of T750, T709 fertilizers to 7,735 rupees and that of the T200 fertilizer to be reduced to 5,500 rupees. He explained that while the price reductions will be applicable to both small and medium-scale tea cultivators, the T750, T709 and T200 fertilizers will be sold at the price of 9,735 rupees to all large-scale tea cultivation companies. Minister Amaravira further explained that the prices of fertilizer used for the cultivation of tea are likely to reduce by 50%, stating that the current prices of the said fertilizers is 13,000 rupees. He explained that the measure was taken in a bid to mandate the use of fertilizers for the cultivation of tea so as to better the country's tea industry. Moving on to stocks news, the Colombo Stock Exchange closed lower for a 6th straight session today as losses in food and beverage and banking sector dragged stocks down. The CSE All-Share Index closed 0.61% down at 10,545.88 points, while the S&P SL20 edged 0.79% lower to close at 2,099.09 points. Belster Corp and DFCC Bank were the top losers on the CSE All-Share, falling 3.63% and 2.59% respectively. Trading volume on the CSE All-Share Index increased to 37.6 million shares from 24.9 million shares in the previous session. Equity market turnover grew to 1.5 billion rupees from 567.8 million rupees in the previous session. The insurance sector was the top contributor to market turnover today, while the food, beverage and tobacco sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 586.8 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 1.3 billion rupees. With that, let's take a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies as the day progressed. The Commercial Bank of Ceylon has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Haley's Solar Company to provide investment opportunities in solar power and pledges to provide lower interest rates under the Commercial Bank's Diribala Green Development Loan Scheme. With that, let's take a look at the corporate sector world today. Businesses looking for a viable alternative to electricity from the national grid have been provided an opportunity to invest in solar power as a result of a collaboration between the Commercial Bank of Ceylon and Haley's Solar, the renewable energy arm of Haley's Fentons Limited. A memorandum of understanding signed by the two organizations commits the Commercial Bank to offer concessionary terms under the bank's Diribala Green Development Loan Scheme for businesses to purchase solar power systems from Haley's Solar with a number of exclusive benefits. Commercial Bank and Haley's Solar will offer loans during the promotional period with a 1% lower interest rate than the published rate for Diribala Green Development loans, along with a 10% cashback on the purchase value to the loan accounts of buyers, potentially aiding in the settlement of loan installments and easing the investment burden on customers' cash flow. First Capital Treasuries plc said that the director board of the company has unanimously appointed Manjula Matthews, who was a non-independent, non-executive director, as the chairperson of the company. First Capital in a statement said that Matthews will be taking over the role with immediate effect following the appointment. Matthews is also director of the parent company Janashakti Limited. Meanwhile, the board of directors of HNB Finance plc have appointed Rajiv Dissanayake, who was a non-independent, non-executive director, as the chairman of the company. The new chairman will be taking over the office with effect from the 8th of January 2024. Zimbabwe are currently 60-1, chasing Sri Lanka's total of 176 in the second T20 currently being played. For now, this is Jonathan Benedict. Have a blessed week ahead and a good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.